This time our guest is the distinguished international star Oscar Homolka, who stars in the United Artists production of Billion Dollar Brain, with Michael Caine, Francois Dorliac, Carl Malden, and Ed Begley. This interview was pre-taped while the film was being shot in Helsinki, Finland.
This interview was digitally recorded for the Harry Palmer movie site.
Hello, Oscar Homolka in faraway Finland.
Well, very far away. It's my first visit here, I must say. I would like to live here, frankly. No, I would not.
Well, I suppose you've lived everywhere else, huh?
Yeah, almost. That's quite true. I was born in Vienna, I lived in Berlin, I left when Hitler came. I went to London. Oh, I lived in Paris for a while, and then I lived in New York, of course, in Hollywood. So there you have the lot.
Now, this is your second film with Michael Caine.
Yes, that's right. Well, he did one before, A Funeral in Berlin,
As the Russian Colonel Stok.
That's right. Well, I played the same part in this one, the Billion Dollar Brain.
You like doing these Len Deighton films?
Well, I tell you something, I enjoyed Funeral in Berlin, and I think the character's amusing, He's called Stok, but it's not the Stok Russian. He's a sense of humor, and has developed a kind of personal relationship with Caine, with Palmer in that thing. And they get on very well. They fight each other, but it's a rather amusing relationship. He's human, let's put it that way. We had a time when Russians were sort of people with wolves' heads, and everybody's terrible, and everybody... No, he's amusing, he's efficient in his job, but he has a fondness for Palmer, this Englishman, and, well, I think it's fun.
What kind of backgrounds have you been working on in Finland?
On a frozen lake, and they were testing the lake all the time, whether the ice is holding us, and in the end apparently they dispersed the cars, because they were afraid we would sink in, because of 2 feet from where we were shooting, there was a big river flowing, and the big ships passing by. It was an extraordinary sight. I've never seen anything like it. That's a fantastic setting, and they should look good on the screen.
I understand your entrance in that scene is something to see as well.
Oh, out of the helicopter. Oh, yes. I come out of the helicopter. That's that. It was an impressive setting, the whole thing, There's no doubt about that.
Well, as I remember from Funeral in Berlin, Colonel Stok turns up in the weirdest places.
Yes, absolutely true. But he is the head of security of the Baltic states. Before we saw him in Berlin, as head of security. But he's amusing, he's fun. That otherwise I would be bored to play those, dual, Russians, which we have seen for years. The only relief in my case was that I'm a stage act too, and I could always go back and do a play on the stage, So you get away from it, and through that you are not too much type.
Have you found that producers think of you as a certain type?
Well, sure they do. They do everybody. Either you're a leading man, or they see you in a certain way. When the Russian turns up, it's me, There was a time when, after I Remember Mama, when a Swedish guy turned up, it was me, And so it goes on. But I have no preference, really. A character has to amuse me, has to be interesting, Then I do it, if it fits in, I don't want to work too much anymore.
What do you think of the great success of these films and, of course, Michael Caine?
Having worked with him, I think for this type, I see him again in this, he's just perfect. And I think the casting is divine. I think they should go on playing that forever. Of course, Carl Malden, I know, Begley, I know. And of course, Francois Dorliac.
And now the younger generation is getting to know you all over again.
I know that. That's a fantastic thing, that's an old saying, you're getting too old, nobody knows you anymore of the younger generation. But then I console myself and say, if you don't want to grow old, you have to die young. Or
hang around with young people.
I like young people. I can't go quite with certain aspects of it, but no generation could, the young, it's not something new. You watch it, you say, well, they like it, why shouldn't they?
How does Billion Dollar Brain differ from Funeral in Berlin?
It differs to that extent that in Funeral in Berlin, he meets Palmer the first time. And, he feels him out, And he plays rather nasty jokes on him, And he starts to like him. And he uses him for his purposes. But in the end, He picks him up in the street and says goodbye to him and says thank you. And he tells him why he used him for purposes which he thought were good for everybody, for the Americans, for the English, and so. Now in this here, of course, they are old acquaintances. And he, which I think is rather fun, he's head of security in the Baltics. And Michael Caine Palmer is mixed up in some strange, kind of subversive story. He turns up in Palmer's room in the hotel, disguised as a floor waiter. Comes in at his back, and then turns around, greets him, and has a whiskey with him, and then says, look here, boy, you are mixed up in a terrible business here. You don't know it yet, what people are involved here. Get out of it. Do me a favor. I came specially for you, disguised, because I'm not supposed to be here in this particular place, And then he drags in a big soup tureen, And then he takes off his full dress and everything. And the uniform is in the soup tureen, He dresses himself in front. There's a whole discussion where he explains to him and says what's going on, really, why he shouldn't get mixed up, He dresses himself, has another drink, and walks out the balcony and disappears in uniform, in full uniform. Of course, Palmer does not let go. I suppose he likes the money or something else. The next time he has him brought to a restaurant, he has him brought in, he's slightly beaten up, Palmer, And he sits him down, he gives him some vodka, he gives him some caviar, and as he says, boiled potato is the greatest meal in the world. And he tells him the whole background, in this case of Latvia, during the war, And he says, those are gangsters, he says, Those were war criminals and that's what you are mixed up with. And he sends him back, he sends him to Helsinki. He said, go to Helsinki. And he says one line which is very true, which, when we look at Germany at the moment, with the new Nazi party coming up, he says one line, he says, those people who created such terror, you would think they would keep quiet. But he says, no, they're the worst troublemakers. Then in the end, he meets him again, and that was the last scene we shot yesterday, of course, where Palmer finds out that the girl he rather liked was an agent of Stok, They say goodbye, and he sends him back with a parcel to Colonel Ross in London. Now, I don't know whether I should tell you the end of this, because this is a little surprise. We leave that to the picture.
Which we'll look forward to. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Well, it's been very nice to be on your show. Thank you very much. This is Oscar Homolka saying goodbye from the set of $1 Billion Brain in Helsinki.
And this has been Dick Strout reporting on location.